Today, we'll be delving into the horrors of the classic Call of Cthulhu scenario, The Haunting.
Oh, come on!
The Haunting for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu was written by Sandy Peterson, Mike Mason, Paul Fricker, and Lynn Willis. And I say The Haunting for 7th edition because The Haunting has been the quick start module for every single edition of Call of Cthulhu. It is a legendary module, and with very good reason. It is simple, and it covers the themes of horror mixed with research and sudden and unexpected violence and the chance of insanity that Call of Cthulhu is known for. It is close to a perfect scenario to get players into Call of Cthulhu and role-playing in general. So it might sound like sacrilege me tackling this as the first episode of this show, but I think that there are some elements of this module that I think a game master could tweak a little bit to give yourself an easier time and your players a better experience. This is not a deep dive video into the module. I think that before you watch this, you should get a copy of it. It's free. That's what's fantastic about it as well. It's free. Get a copy and read it and come back here. This is a guide to not every nook and cranny of the module, but just the elements I think that could be just given that extra oomph. We should still probably go through the basics. Let's reacquaint ourselves.
Hey, stop listening. This is a big time spoiler alert, and I will not be held responsible if you hear something you don't want to hear.
The investigators have to meet with a Mr. Knott.
Hello.
Who is Mr. Knott? Mr. Knott is the owner of a property, a house, a potentially haunted house. And Mr. Knott can't find anyone to live in this house, understandably. So he hires the investigators to check things out, look into it, find out what's going on. Why is my house potentially haunted? And he'll pay you to do it. $20 a day. Your investigators will go out and about. They'll conduct research, looking in various tomes, libraries. They'll speak to certain people. They'll dig up the dirt. And then after that, potentially, they will go to the house. Unfortunately, spoilers, the secret of the house, of course, is that it still has an occupant. The previous tenant, Mr. Corbett, is lying in the basement. He's basically an undead wizard. He's basically a lich. When he was alive, he was part of a cult, the Church of Contemplation. And when he was nearing the end of his life, supposedly, he asked to be buried in the basement.
It's free real estate.
He's hidden down there, and anyone in the house who enters it, he is going to try to kill. The way to end the scenario successfully, although in Call of Cthulhu is anything really a success, your investigators will need to get into the basement to find him and kill him. That's it. It's a very simple scenario. Get into house, go down to basement, kill spooky man. A lot of Call of Cthulhu scenarios have got one problem, I find, and that is they're not great for newbies who don't know anything about this game or role-playing or groups. It sometimes feels weird that you just have a group of random people investigating something for no reason. That's why in a lot of the modules, it'll be that the person who's, hiring you to do it is usually someone who's like a family friend, or there's someone who's recently died and left you a mysterious letter. Mr. Knott, he wants you to investigate all about a spooky house for $20 a day. And that's great. $20 is a lot of money in the 1920s. The problem is it's not the most compelling reason to get people to do this. Because when shit gets weird in this, you're just going to go, this is not worth $20 a day. It has to be something that really drives them to investigate. And also something that would drive a potentially random group of people to investigate. The Quick-Start module does kind of imply that you're probably private investigators of some kind of agency, but I find that while the most reasonable way to get your investigators to buy in of why they would bother investigating a spooky house, they've got better things to do, but I find it rather limiting, because one of the great strengths of Call of Cthulhu is that your investigators can be anyone from the 1920s within reason. You want to, I think, ideally sell this scenario. You've got to let your newbie players have fun and pick all the occupations that are in both the main big heavy book, but also in the investigator's handbook, because that means they'll look through there and they'll see pilot, or they'll see psychiatrist, or they'll see lawyer, doctor. There's a huge amount of careers, and you just want to let them pick what they want, not be tied down to being a private investigator. So we're back to square one. Disparate people, how do we get them invested in this? And why then would not hire these random people who could be anything from a pilot to a lion tamer to do this? Leverage is my answer here. Mr. Knott has to have leverage on these people. It can't just be Knott's going to pay them money, because this is so inconvenient. Each one of them should owe Knott. Now that might mean literally, maybe they're in debt to Knott, or it could be that Knott wants to do them a massive favor, or it could be that Knott is blackmailing them. I don't know if I'm showing my age here, but if anyone's seen the classic board game adaptation Clue, each of the people who turn up at this house find out that they are all being blackmailed by Mr. Body.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all have one thing in common. You're all being blackmailed. For some considerable time, all of you have been paying what you can afford, and in some cases more than you can afford, to someone who threatens to expose you.
You can do that with Knott. You can make Knott a figure that they have to pay back a favor that he's calling in. Now, this is very good, because it also means that you now have a reason for these random individuals to not know each other but now have a common cause. But you now also have a great way for them to introduce themselves to each other. Well, why do you owe Knott? Well, why do you owe Knott?
You know what doctors aren't allowed to do with their lady patients?
Yeah.
Well, he did. How then do you justify taking bribes in return for delivering your husband Senator Peacock's vote to certain lobbyists? You've been paying our friend the blackmailer ever since your husband died under, shall we say, mysterious circumstances.
It sets up a little bit of tension right there at the beginning as well. They can all hate Knott, but they all know they've got to do what he says, and that's how they can get that yoke from off their neck. Why doesn't Knott do this himself? He could just be lazy, that's fine, but I like to just give him an actual impediment. What would stop you going into a spooky house with lots of stairs? Well, you can't climb the stairs right now. So why don't we say that Knott went on a skiing trip recently, and that when the players first meet Knott is in a wheelchair. He's got nice big casts over his legs. Knott is in no shape to go to this house. You can have this wonderful scene where, first of all, your players are sitting in a lounge in Knott's mansion, waiting to be seen, when the doors open up and Knott is wheeled into them, legs in casts by his butler. And immediately now you understand why he needs you to do it. He needs you to be his eyes and ears on the street, because he can't. Now, the other question is, Well, yeah, why doesn't Knott just hire the best of the best if you're random people? Well, remember how I said he was on a skiing trip? Why not? Why don't we make Knott a bit of a playboy here? You know, frivolous with money. The kind of person who's going to buy a random haunted house without digging into the history of the property first. Well, let's say that. He's a stupid playboy. And what do those have sometimes? Rich parents. And how about that Knott, on this latest adventure to, say, Monte Carlo, the Alps, or what have you, he has been blowing money left, right, and center. Now he's gotten a stupid accident that had to make him shipped back at great expense. Let's say the Bank of Mummy and Daddy have now cut off Knott. And now Knott needs money. Your players now know who Mr. Knott is, what he wants, why he's getting you to do it, and why he can't do it. And what does he want you to do? He wants you to investigate his spooky house. So what are the players going to do? They're going to go straight to the spooky house. They're going to go A to B, straight line. Easiest way to do it. There's not a problem with them going to the house. That's the beauty of role-playing. They can go wherever they want and do whatever they want. But it means that when they get there and the crazy stuff starts happening, we have no idea what the hell is going on. Why are things flying at us? And that can be great. Lack of knowledge can be terrifying. But it's sometimes more fun for building up tension with a haunted house if you know the history, if you know the horrible things that happen in that house. It makes it a lot more foreboding to go there. And it's also really, really smart that if you're introducing players to Call of Cthulhu with a starter adventure, that you teach them some of the core mechanics of Call of Cthulhu. And that includes research. Research is one of the major cornerstones of playing this game. You know, you want them to know that, like, a big part of the game is looking up stuff, talking to people, find out as much as you can about the weird stuff before you have to face the weird stuff. Make the goal concrete. Knott's gotten this house from, let's say, a state auction, disposed of property to the state. Knott says, I have got a terrible problem with this house's reputation. I don't want you making it worse. I don't want you turning up to this house, causing a ruckus, and oh no, my house is worth even less. The players go, Mr. Knott, give us the key and we'll go there. Have him go, no. That's the last place you go. First of all, I want you to satisfy my wishes to try to find the previous tenants, the previous owners. If you have exhausted all your research about the house, then we'll look at this. Then we'll see about you going there. Now, the players could just wait 20 minutes, come back, go, yeah, we tried, there's nothing to find out about the house. They could do that. They could ignore Knott and go straight to the house without a key and break it open. Also valid, they could try that. But remember that they owe Knott a favor. They're probably going to more likely try to do what he wants, and they're going to try to, dig up this, previous owners of the house. Now, with the tenants, there's the Macarios, who are the last tenants who are in the sanitarium. This gets them to the sanitarium to meet them. The other thing you've got is the previous owner, which is thought to be Corbett, if they dig up to that lair. But if they dig up to that, they're going to see that record saying, no. The owner was the Reverend that Corbett left all of his goods and his house to. And then they're going to go, who's this Reverend? And then they're going to find out about the church. And then they will possibly go to the church, because the church is a wonderful location in this module. It's creepy as hell. Your players have a chance of falling through the floor. But you'll notice it's a hard jump to get them there, unless you tell your players, I want to find out about the previous owner. And it's more likely they'll go to not only the Church of Contemplation, they're more likely to have gone to the courts, to the police. You see what I mean? You've bounced them around these other locations just by giving them a different mission. Find these people. If you want to get them to the newspaper, you can say stuff when you're talking, because they're going to ask to go to the house. You go, no. I know there's been some reporters sniffing around. I think there was a reporter, the reporter who tried to get in contact with me for a story. I heard that they were trying to sniff around the neighborhood as well. Then they'll go to the press. And you haven't just said, go to the press, go to the Hall of Records, but you've given them a reason to go to these places, right? So it's not forcing them to go. They can always go straight to the house. They can always break in. But you're just giving them guidance about other places to go, and they'll get so much more out of it if they know more about this house. Now, I'm not going to go into crazy detail about, all the ways to make the house spooky, because I think you need to check out Seth Skrakowski's video on that. Seth is one of the greatest minds on Call of Cthulhu specifically, but role-playing in general. The man is a champ, whose channel I cannot recommend to you enough. I don't think I could possibly improve on spooky factor with a guide to the house in The Haunting. I think Seth has nailed it. He's got fantastic advice for making the bed attack more effective, from making Corbett expend magic points to make noises and move the bed, for making even the bathtub more spooky. So for theming of the house, I really suggest you go to Seth's video. I do only have one suggestion for a spooky factor, and that is that the window in the infamous bed attack scene, don't just make a noise at the window. Have something be scraped into it. Have words start to be scraped into it, because your players might not understand this is a, mean undead zombie in the basement. They might think it's a ghost with unfinished business trying to communicate with us, and you have something spelled out. I think there was one Reddit post I saw which said that you have the player walk over to the window, and on the window as they get there, it just says, "Sucker," and then the bed flies over and hits them, and I loved it, because it was this idea that Corbett is just a malevolent, horrible, cruel, nasty guy. Weirdly enough, I had the same idea, but it wasn't the word sucker, which I think is brilliant, and I'm going to use that next time. My one was boo. I did do the same thing, but I just had it that they got to the window and went, boo. I'm like, what? Bed flying at me! I just like the idea of words written on the window rather than just the window shaking, because the whole room is supposed to be, acting up and making noise. And you have to find a way to get the player to that window so you can fly the bed at them. But my issues with making the house fun is more about ease of the journey. So a lot of players I've noticed actually have trouble with the basement, because they know they've got to get down there. If they've done their research, they know that Corbett is in the basement. But they get down, and he's not in the basement. He's behind this wooden wall there. You have to get the players behind the wooden wall to get to Corbett himself. And they might not know this. So, two things. One, make clear to your players when they get downstairs that the basement is surprisingly small, considering how, long the house is upstairs. Also make note of how all the walls are stone, apart from one that is wooden boards. They'll understand, why are the rest of the walls stone? Why is that one wooden boards? Can we dig behind the wooden boards? It's very simple, but I have seen players who go into the basement, see it's empty, and then they just leave the basement because they don't understand that you can go through that wall. The next thing about the basement is something more deadly, the knife. There's this floating, scary knife that will try to stab your players. Now, in the module, this is one of the deadliest things for your players. It can potentially kill them. But the knife itself, it turns out, isn't really significant. And that's a bit of a shame, because if you go and visit Mr. Macario in the sanitarium, he will exclaim that you have to kill the beast with its own weapon or something like that. And your players are likely to, if they hear that, and then there's this knife flying around, they probably think this is the uber killer. This is the weapon to use. I think, right, that this knife should have more importance. And it should have some powers, but nothing too crazy. My solution is make this knife a magic point drainer. Make it that it will for half the points it does in damage, it will take that in magic points from its victims. Now your players are starter players, they don't need these magic points, and they'll regain them later anyway through rest. So let's put them into play though. Let's show them that magic points can be depleted. But also, let's make this knife have some power. What does it do? It sucks magic points. It's a font of magic points. What this also means though, is that when your players get the knife and they of course try to use it on Corbett, what does it do? It sucks up his magic points. It doesn't make him harder to kill with his flesh ward or, trying to hit him. But what it does is it'll start making it that he has less and less magic to use. And, and eventually when his magic is nil, those extra magic points it's trying to suck up, maybe those are hit points. It means that they, can tell that it's doing something to him if the, keeper describes it as you can see that this knife is like really absorbing pain out of him, that skin around his body grows tighter and more like deadish. When that happens, it becomes more dried up. They'll think it's drying him up and they'll keep stabbing him with the knife, but all it's doing is taking his magic points. And it means that your players now maybe have their first artifact on their first module, that they can now take this knife. Then maybe if you're holding the knife, you can now, first of all, before you suck your own magic points to do any spells that they learn, they can absorb them from the knife first. You can figure some negative repercussions of that later. Maybe this is part of what turned Corbett undead. But the point is, make the knife count for something, right? Another issue in the basement is the rats. There's a bunch of this house that's unfair, and I think that you've got too much of it, where the bed is fantastic upstairs, where the bed jumps your players. They'll never see it coming. Great. The knife is a second surprise. The knife's going to jump out, and the knife's going to try to stab you. The third surprise should really be Corbett finding him back there and being surprised when he sits up. You don't need another surprise. And the rats in the wall are a bit of an unfair surprise. These rats will just burst out, have to roll dodge. Oh no, they're eating your face. My idea for making the rats just a little bit more fair is that when your players are knocking down that wooden wall or they're trying to break it, let them roll a listen check. Give them a chance to know that there's something behind that wall. Because if you started digging into a wall which had rats behind it, of course the rats will start moving. So let them do that so that when they open it up, maybe you can give them a bonus point to the dodge when the rats try to leap out. So you go, your player will go, I know there's rats back there, I'm going to keep an eye open for it. Give them a bonus die, which is great as well because it's a way to show them a bonus die, which I don't see a huge amount of opportunities in this module to do that. It's another mechanic you can get across to them. Yes, because you did your planning, because you've succeeded at this, you have a greater chance of succeeding at that. Let's say an investigator dies in the house. If it's a starter adventure, it's not very nice for your player to now just die. Don't get me wrong, kill them. If they, not your player's character, kill them. A lot more legally sound. If your player character dies, they die. That's Call of Cthulhu. That should happen. Just let that happen. But have a backup investigator ready for them to take over. And that could be several people. One, I said, remember Knott's butler, the one who wheels him in the wheelchair? If you give him at least a few lines, he's a character. Have him enter the house going, what's going on? Mr. Knott sent me to go and, follow you guys. And then when I, saw you guys go in and I heard screams or I heard, banging, I rushed indoors. They could have the butler, right? That's one. Another person they could have, the reporter who originally investigated the house. And I would suggest you front load this by making sure that when they go to the Globe, have that reporter there. I mean, because your players are probably going to ask, who wrote this article? There's the unprinted article about the house. and that's only a couple years old, that reporter might still work there. Yeah, write out a name for this NPC, create this character, this reporter, so that they can ask him about, hey, why you were investigating the house, was there anything else you found out? And he can point them. By the way, he's very useful because he can say, oh yeah, I looked in the hall, I was trying to look in the hall of records about all the certificates. They might go there. But the more important thing is now you establish this reporter who's kind of pissed off that they never got their story published, right? That's why he can turn up at the house, because he's like, you guys were digging into this, I came to see what's happening, oh god, what's happening? There you go, the reporter. Another person you could have is if the players go to the police station and they show their hand a little bit and say they're investigating the house to the cops, then you can have an investigator be replaced by whatever policeman was at the station. That's your new investigator. Those are my 3 options, I think. But try to think of in-universe people who can immediately come through that basement door and replace the dead one. Because this is the quick start. Let's have some fun. Let's keep it going. The handouts in the quick start are not superb. They're very interesting, but they are literally just text in boxes. Now, you can't complain. This is free. This is a free module, right? But you might want something a bit more fancy to give your players. There are a lot of handouts people have made online. Of course they have. This is a very old adventure that's been, updated through the years. Be careful about that though, because some handouts have incorrect dates, because this module has been rewritten a few times. Some dates have been moved around, so make sure that if you download any handouts, you check the dates on them. But there is one handout set I would recommend, and that is the Cultist Armoury. It is really expansive, and it has psychiatric reports of the Marcarios. It has police reports for the police raid on the Church of Contemplation. It has all of the newspaper clippings. It has Corbett's death certificate. It has pretty much everything you could need and more. Probably too much. I would say that if you get this set, which is only a few dollars, the police report is very, very long, and it's brilliant, but your players might not want to do that much reading at that time. Take a couple of the middle pages out and you'll be fine. Anything that's not really necessary for information, just take them out. Just take it and just say, oh no, we lost some of the file, especially because the version that's in this handout pack of the police report, you can have a version that's got those redacted black stripes through it, which is great. So if there's missing pages as well, it's like, what the hell was on those pages? Maybe your players look into that. It's a fantastic handout set. The other part of the handout which you might want to skip is it has got Corbett's diary entries, and you might want to just not have to hand that out. It's a lot of reading. It's really well made, but you might want to just give them just the cliff notes of what's in there, especially because it says it might take them days to read Corbett's diaries. Lastly, rule books. If you do not have the Call of Cthulhu core book, right, you are probably going to want to make sure that you get both versions of the Quick Start rules. And what do I mean? I mean that for 7th edition, they released an original version of this Quick Start set, and they brought out a new one. Now, the original one had the weaknesses that there were no pre-gens in it, but it had the Quick Start character generation system. The new version has the pre-gens, but they've cut out the Quick Start character generator because they expect you to use the pre-gens. But you might want your players to make characters at the table. So I'd advise you download both, so you just have it at hand if you do not have the player's handbook. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope that some of these tips come in handy if you are running The Haunting. I will hopefully give some advice on some other modules soon. I want to do one on Edge of Darkness, which is also a potential starter. Although I will immediately say before I get onto that The Haunting is the superior starter adventure. I know people like Edge of Darkness, but I really, really, really like The Haunting. So for now, I'll see you next time. Sleep tight and don't let the bed bite.